Well, things happen, and you just got to adapt. So I think I did a good job of that, and found ways to train and found people to train with. So uh, did a good job of getting consistent training over the pandemic, and then I've been back in the room with my coaches for a good bit now. So it's been a smooth adjustment.
We talked with I talked with Caleb Romero and Tanner Fritz in the fall, and they mentioned things like biking and other things to stay in shape, and they focused on cardio a little bit more. I'm curious if you dabbled in that a little bit, or what else you may have done.
Well, yeah, cardio, big part of wrestling. So you always gotta have good cardio. So yeah, doing things like that and running and getting on a bike, and I think I had a little bit more opportunities to wrestle, which was good. So yeah, all areas got better.
Cool, thanks.
All right, well, next up, the Keaton Marciano from the Lantern with Sean Dunnigan on deck. Go ahead, Keaton.
Hey, Sammy. Thanks for taking time out of your day to talk to us. Kind of going off what Jacob asked, just kind of what have been the biggest differences and challenges that you've had preparing for this season specifically?
Well, there's not much. There's not too much. I mean, there's just some things that you need to figure out. But once you find what works for you, uh, life hasn't changed too much for me as far as with COVID and all that. Competing, maybe we're not competing as much, but we're training just as hard. Things aren't going to slow down because of what's happening.
Yeah. And then kind of talking about that, are you kind of a person how do you approach a season like this, I should say? Are you kind of just focus on the inward things that you can control? Do you kind of talk with your teammates about things that are going on the outside? Just kind of how do you approach a season that's unlike any other?
Well, you make it as simple as it can be. It's another season. It's another chance to go wrestle. So why would I make it? Why would I make it much different? Every time I step out to compete, whether there's fans in there or there's not, it's the same thing. Two guys are going out there and they want to get their hand raised, and I'm going to do everything in my power to get my hand raised. So not much is changing, and just some protocol stuff, and getting tested and things like that. But the training aspect, we're training harder than ever, and when it's time to compete, I've been doing it for a while, so I'm not going to change up much.
Thanks.
All right, next up is Sean Dunnigan, Patrick Mayhorn on deck. Go ahead, Sean.
Hey, Sammy, it sounds like you're not letting the pandemic or anything affect what you're thinking going into the season. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, it's an opportunity for me to go achieve my goals. So I'm just thankful I get the opportunity. So I'm gonna make the most of it.
When you look over the landscape of the 149 division, what do you see in front of you that might stand in your way of becoming a national champion?
I ain't focused on anybody else. So I know the guys at the weight, but I'm focused on myself. And when I'm being Sammy Sasso and wrestling my best, good things are gonna happen. So yeah, just making sure I'm on top of my game.
Thanks, Sammy. Good luck this season.
Thank you.
And Patrick Mayhorn, you're up.
Sammy, have you been asked at all to sort of step into more of a leadership role this season with Luke and Colin gone? I know that you were already kind of doing that last year, but are you filling that more with, as you was now one of the older and, higher expectation wrestlers on the team?
Yeah, I guess so.
How have you handled that change? Is it different at all?
No, I don't think so. I just try to be myself and just be there for guys on the team, and I try to do a good job at that, and hopefully guys respond well.
What is the sort of is there any kind of feeling of hunger on this team to get back out there with the way that the last season ended, where you didn't really have the chance to, go prove yourself nationally? Is there that sort of extra fire to get back out there?
Well, yeah. I mean, everybody is excited to compete and excited to just do what we love. But you can't dwell too much on what happened last year. That's in the past now, and I try to focus on what's in front of us. So, but yeah, you could say more excited, more eager to get on the mat.
Thanks.
Next up, we have Chase Brown from the Lantern. Go ahead, Chase.
Hey, I had a question just about the preparation that your team has had headed into this Big Ten season. It's a unique year where you're going to be facing all Big Ten opponents. And I was wondering if your preparation has changed at all from a team aspect and for your individual preparation going into this year.
I don't think so. We're coming in and we're training hard. I don't think much has changed. If anything, we're just training harder, and guys are just grateful for the time we get to be together, and because it was a while that we weren't. So guys are just grateful. Guys are appreciative.
March 11th, we shut down 6 days before the national championship. Colin Moore, Luke Pletcher were ranked number 1. Sammy Sasso was in a position to win it. Romero, Ethan Smith, a bunch of guys were in a position to place high. And it's, there are tougher things in life, but at that age, with the focus that these young people have, I would call it somewhat traumatic. We know there's a big difference between tragic and difficult, but it was difficult. So from March 11th to September 11th, we had pretty much no training contact with them. Of course, we could reach out to them, but we were not allowed to guide them in any way. So, what we always learn, we learn the most when we are under duress and in trauma, right? So we learn the most about people. So these guys, the ones that dealt with this 6 month away from each other out of this incredible environment, are likely going to perform better than the ones that didn't. Since they returned, which was in September, we were allowed to start coaching them in September. We were not allowed to put any pressure on them because of COVID. Obviously, the crazy coach is going to put someone in harm's way, right? So preparedness is critical, but not nearly as important as one's well-being. So the school did a pretty good job with managing all this. And then they come back in September. We were not back in our facility until October 19th. So typically from March to September is very brutal, right? So they're off, but it's an important time in building a big base, right? So they didn't have our staff, overseeing their training, but some of them did a really good job. And you just talk to one, the elite, the really elite, the ones that the ones that are CEOs of their life, they do a really good job at managing their minutes. And Sammy's one of them. So he looks really good right now. So it was challenging as a staff. It was challenging for them. It was challenging for the student athlete, but this has been a part of my life, right? For the last, I'm 50, I'm going to be 52, 10 years old, 42 years. I've never not been at practice in the afternoon. Like anybody that calls me between 2:30 and 4 is a moron. Right? They don't know me, right? From 2:30 to 4:30, dude, I'm in the wrestling room. Don't call me, right? And that's pretty much been the last 40 years. So it was challenging for me as well, and just knowing that you don't want to lose ground either, right? So you don't want to lose ground. And you're also dealing with guys that are used to being connection. They're used to being in connection with each other, and that was taken from them. But they're all doing really well now. I think we're in a good place. We've been back practicing since October, and we're excited as heck about the weekend.
What, for an outlook on the season, you lose guys like Colin and Luke, but what do you gain as far as what are you looking forward to with this season for the Buckeyes?
Well, we're going to learn a lot. We're going to see some new faces in there. We're going to see some faces. Singletary moved from heavyweight down to 97. Hoffman was 84, move up to 97. You know, we're going to see just obviously some new faces. A lot of the same faces though as well, right? 25 Malik, 33 Decatur. You know, we're going to see Decatur a year older. You know, we threw him in the gauntlet last year as a true freshman in the Big Ten. Welcome to the Big Ten. I think everybody in the weight was in the top 15 in the country, you know, so there was no easy weekend. So I'm looking forward to seeing, you know, Jordan back in there at 33, like I said, with a year under his belt and maybe a better understanding of just how competitive the Big Ten is. D'Amelio's a new face at 41. He's being challenged by Etchemendia. There are three weights that we don't know what's going to happen at the end of the year. Right now, there's a slight advantage at heavyweight with Tate. A slight advantage that Hoffman has over Singletary, and the slight advantage that D'Amelio has over Etchemendia. That could all change by the end of the year, but you know we're looking forward to seeing people just go out and fight. You know, something. It's like you should be a reflection of what was taken from you, right? Like you said you missed it. Well, gosh darn it, you better show you missed it, right? That's the only way to assess whether how bad someone missed it is, are you showing it? So. You know, this week will be the first test, and obviously both these teams are tough. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing these guys compete.
Thanks, Tom. Good luck this season.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
All right, next up we got Patrick Mayhorn with Keaton Maizano on deck. Patrick.
Hey, Coach, how's it going?
It's going good. Thanks.
So I wanted to start first with Sean mentioned this as well. You're losing two pretty big names in Ohio State wrestling in Colin and Luke. Yeah. Who are you sort of, not just as wrestlers, but as leaders, who are you sort of looking to on this team of a fairly young team to step into those leadership roles and try to serve as the examples for younger players to follow?
Yeah. I mean, through my 15 years here, we've lost some just really special guys to graduation, right? That's what happens. Uh-huh. You don't get them forever. So they leave, and losing more and Plesher were huge losses for us. But we've got guys like Caleb Romero, right, who's a black shirt. We have a black shirt system here, and he's a leader on and off the mat. A black shirt, Carson Karchlova, or Harchla. It's a little bit easier. You can remove the K. So Carson, who unfortunately was injured, but he's a great leader here. Sammy Sasso is a great leader. Ethan Smith is a great leader. So we bring back a core of guys that really understand what it's like to compete in the Big Ten and what it's like to really compete, because you can be a part of sport your entire high school career, junior high, middle school career, and not really understand competition. You have to understand competition to compete in the Big Ten, and those four guys are really some of our great leaders. Again, they're all great in school, great students, great examples. You wouldn't know they wrestled if you met them outside the wrestling room. They're gentlemen, and then they're assassins, right? Those are the guys we're looking for. Be a gentleman in the public and be an assassin after you shake hands. So, yeah, those guys are really good leaders for us.
You mentioned that you have three weight classes that are pretty tight right now in 141, 197, yeah. And heavyweight. What separated, Dylan and Tate, and is it Gavin at 197?
Yeah, I tell you, Gavin, it would be like if you were a jury and you watched this and they shared the information with you about the case, right? You'd be a hung jury, right? You'd say, well, I think he's guilty, but I can't hang my hat on that, right? So they were so close. These wrestling were so close, and the biggest difference in two of the weights was mat wrestling. So D'Amelio is a stud. He's a 4-time state champ out of Ohio. His work ethic's incredible, and we brought in this big recruit, from Cuba, the first I think Cuban student athlete that I know that I've coached, but I think maybe in Ohio State history. But he's a stud, and Dylan did a really good job tactically, technically. He did a really good job holding up physically. And the difference was he rode him. He was able to steal some of the match. And the same thing at heavyweight. Tate and Gas Tank Gary, who is maybe the most beloved Buckeye wrestler I've ever coached, despite the fact we've had some real phenoms. Gary, he got ridden. And Tate did a really good job, again, tactically of holding him down and picking up that bonus point. So, these three weights And then Gavin Hoffman, he's paid his dues here. He's been here for a while. He's been a backup to Miles Martin, and then I really couldn't make 84, was a backup to Colin Moore. And now it's his chance, and he scored a takedown in overtime to win. Again, those three have an advantage, but we're going to watch them through the 6 weeks of competition. And, the end goal is to make sure that we've got the right guy in there come Big Tens. And it's very open communication with our team.
Obviously, all of the weights are important when you're looking at a conference match like this or a tri-meet.
Yeah.
But where are you most interested in seeing this weekend? What's the weight class that you're sort of watching closest?
We know we have some horses, right? We got a couple of guys ranked, that are ranked real high that we think can win the tournament, right? But that's not going to be enough for Ohio State to remain among the elite schools. It's the next level guys that have to step up. Malik Heinzelman. Malik has an incredible work ethic, right? Malik is a great student. Malik is a lover of the sport. We need him to execute the whole match, which is basically keeping your brain involved in what's happening out there and fighting the whole time. So Malik is someone that we're watching closely. Obviously, I mentioned Decatur. We're going to look and see how D'Amelio looked really good in the wrestle off. The staple of our lineup right now are Sasso at 49. And Ethan Smith at 65, and Romero at 74. Rocky Jordan was really tough last year as well. We're looking for him to step up. But I mean, really, there's not a weight going into this weekend that I'm not excited about to see. How much improvement did we get, right? Because they've got to develop in order for us to be challenging for a title. We had to develop at every weight class, and this Sunday will be, reveal a little bit to us.
Thanks, Coach.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, next up is Keaton Mazzano from the Lantern. Keaton?
Hey, Coach. I'm just kind of curious. Hey, I'm just kind of curious how you kind of approach this season. I know Coach Day kind of talked about the exhaustion his team felt after their season ended. Just, you've been doing this a while, but obviously under different circumstances here. Do you have to change your philosophy at all and how you handle your team since there's not as much, I guess, enjoyment or things to do outside of just playing wrestling or just wrestling?
Yeah, listen, Coach Day, he went, that was pretty intense for him. He's got a lot of guys on the team, and they were shut down, and you have guys that, you don't know if they're playing from week to week. So he's walked through it, right? I'm in the excitement phase. He also went through not playing, right? He went, which I went through in March, right? So I felt the reality of, what do you mean? What do you mean you're not gonna let us go to the national tournament, right? So that was a challenging thing, I'm sure, for Coach Day and his staff, that they trained, all year, and then you're told that the Big Ten is not going to play, and you're watching other conferences play. So that had to be extremely heavy on him and his team. And the fact that he put the team in the national finals, knowing, and this isn't a knock against the SEC, the reality is that the Big Ten was just more careful than the SEC, right? Our testing protocols were really intense, and that's challenging to not know from week to week, day to day, who's going to be in practice and who's not, and dealing with guys who are in quarantine and isolation for 10, 20, 30 days at a time. It's an element of preparation that you're not prepared for, because it's never happened, right? I'm sure that Coach Day would say there's very few things as a coach that he's never been exposed to except for that. So he and I have become friends through the process, because he was walking through what I'm about ready to get into now. We've been really fortunate so far. As far as our first competition goes, as of today, everyone's good to go. Our team can wrestle. But as we know, tomorrow we could lose a starter and not have that weight class, being represented. So we're in the beginning stages of it. I think right now this team is in a very grateful place, right? Gratitude is moving throughout the program. We're super grateful that we're going to get a chance to wrestle this year in the midst of the pandemic. So we're taking one day at a time.
And do you feel like you have to be almost more in tune with how your players are feeling, or maybe the culture surrounding the team, especially this year? I know in years past, maybe it'd be a little bit more business-like focus, but how do you feel like you've evolved as how you've had to approach not only them as athletes, but as people too?
Yeah, no, I think, me and my staff are very much players, coaches to begin with. I think we're very real with our team, and we talk a lot with our team. We like to get together with our team. The toughest thing has been just not being able to get together with them as much. Typically, you take someone to lunch, it's occasional meal. There's all sorts of rules that allow you to do things that we haven't been able to do. So I do think that we're always careful, but I think we're more careful than ever. You know, I've never been told to stay in my dorm room for 10 days in an isolation. Like, I don't know what that feels like, you know? So, you know, just communicating with them through that is really important, right? They're humans that are dealing with things that, right, to some degree, no college student athlete has ever dealt with. So, yeah, we're loving them.
Thanks, Coach.
Yeah.
All right, next up is Lauren Tarrant. Lauren, go ahead.
Hi, Coach. So what are some of your biggest takeaways from last season that you hope to like either improve on or continue for like momentum this weekend?
The Big Ten, we had a good showing at the Big Ten. So some of the guys that some of our student athletes that might have been in a questionable competitive level, they stepped up at the Big Ten. So we were 6 days away from the national tournament. So what we're looking for are the guys that finished maybe in the middle tier of the Big Ten to finish in the top tier of the Big Ten, right? We're looking for people that competed. Let's say they competed at 100 miles an hour. I want to see them at 150 miles an hour, right? You know, I want to see an increased skill level. So across the board, this is a team that has to get better, right? This isn't the 2015 team coming into the season where, you know, we felt really good about winning it. I mean, I had predicted after football won it, I predicted we would win it, and I'm not clairvoyant at all, but we had some really good people, you know, at a really high level that were used to competing at a high level. So I think that's the biggest thing this year is elevating the ability for these guys to compete, really compete at a high level. If we do that, it's gonna be a fun team in March.